On this week's show, we're discussing the full breakdown of the PlayStation State of Play, including new exciting IP and a Days Gone remaster, Avowed getting some great reviews, and much, much more on this week's GamerGuild podcast. Good game, everyone, and welcome back to your weekly gaming podcast, the GamerGuild podcast, where we get together to round up all of the week's video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Just search for GamerGuildTV or the GamerGuild podcast, and you will find us there every Monday, 8 a.m, as we go live every single week. This is episode number 79, technically 450 of our long-running gaming podcast series, and your podcast players for the week are myself, Chris, at Arcane Rogue, and my man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, indeed. And we do have a great show lined up for you all. But before we get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring-a-ding-ding that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here on the channel, such as this very show, our weekly live streams, and much, much more. Richie, we have a wonderful merch store. We have a wonderful Discord. We have loads of wonderful things. But more importantly, we've been doing a live stream this week, and we played our continuation of the adventures with Ellie in The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. We're up to Part 4 now. We're about 8 hours in, I would say, maybe 9 hours in.
We've probably covered maybe the first quarter of the game, maybe a third at a push.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to tell because we do so much exploration. You don't quite know where we're going with it.
We always have that intention of going, like, trying to fairly mainline it when we're doing a stream, but then the natural instinct to explore takes over.
Yeah, the collectathon nature inside me takes over and I have to look in every crevice. But because the game is quite heavily leaning into like scavenging for resources, it's also in our best interests to explore.
Yeah, it is part of the game. It's not like we're going off the beaten path and doing ridiculous side quests just to fill out time. It's just, you meant to scavenge and we do want to find these secrets. Like, if we hadn't, we wouldn't have got the second holster for our sidearms, which we got last week in the last episode.
Which is really, really helpful when it gets into the later part of the game and you're up against a few more enemies than you were at the beginning. But it's gone good so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's such a great game and it's getting me very hyped for season 2 of the show, which is just a few weeks away now. So if you are tuning in for our podcast surrounding the show, which is of course the Clickercast season 2, check out season 1 if you've not done so already. If you want to catch up with the show, we have a dedicated Last of Us podcast out there ready for you to listen to and break down in season 1. In the meantime, though, Richie, another week has passed as we dive through the month of February. We're up to Valentine's Day now. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there who's celebrating with their loved ones over this long weekend. And
Happy Valentine's Day. What
game have you been spending some lovely time with this past 7 days?
So I finally rolled credits on Metaphor. So now I'm chasing down these elusive trophies for the Platinum. I'm getting there. There's still a bit of game in front of me. But I did take a little bit of a breather from it this week, and I was playing a bit of Football Manager 24.
Wow.
Because if you're a football fan, you know the transfer window's just finally ended. And interestingly, I felt like I wanted to do, how Manchester United with their new manager switch from largely a 4 at the back to a 5 at the back system.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, could I take his current system, but because it's FM24, not 25, with last season's squad?
Okay.
So I've converted Aaron Wan-Bissaka to a right-sided centre-back. And it's working. He's got an average rating of like 8.
Wow.
It's just he's absolutely killing it. But the way the game is, like, every press conference people ask me about, is this going to be a parent thing? It's like, we'll see. It's like, yes. Because he can't play as a wing-back. But like as an outside centre-back, he's just absolutely crushing it.
I can almost feel 50% of the audience going, and skip the podcast.
Yeah, that's all it is, the Football Manager. But it's like, sometimes I find it fun to just go and do these kind of quirky things.
Yeah.
It's like, I do it in FIFA as well. Just like, you just take have an idea for a team and you just try and implement it.
Yeah, Football Manager is one of those games, along with FIFA when you talk about it, or EA Sports FC to give it its correct official title. And when people talk about it, especially when you think like the wider world, and I come across a lot of people who don't class themselves as gamers, but they play things like fantasy sports drafts and stuff, and they'll do like fantasy league football. And it's like you are literally playing an RPG. You are sitting down every week, looking at your team, or your squad, or your group of heroes, and you
developing your party,
developing them up. Yeah, you're giving them stats. You're putting them in with boosts and manager perks and unlimited shuffles and game week 53 and all that kind of stuff. To at the end of the day get a higher score than anyone else in the league, and it's such an RPG. It's hilarious. The
thing with Football Manager, it's nerdy as fuck. It's basically a spreadsheet simulator. So it's like with FIFA, you start a career as Man United and go, oh yeah, he's a budget of 200 million pounds, and you've also got like £1 million worth of wage budget, so you can basically sign any player in the world. I joined Manchester United as their manager and got told, man, my transfer budget is zero because of financial fair play.
I mean,
so it's also quite interesting. It's like, oh, so now if I want to implement the system, I can't actually buy new players. So I have to make do with what I've got.
Academy is where it's at.
But, I promised Marcus Rashford I'd develop a right wing back for the new first team squad from the academy.
Oh, false promises.
Not false promises. I've actually promoted two to my first team because I only had Dallo who could play there.
We're getting into the weeds of it again. At least you can play it for quite some time because, of course, on last week's show we reported that FM25 has been cancelled. So you've got an extra,
which is exactly why I'm playing 24.
Extra year's worth of value out of that purchase. And mate, you said you've wrapped up on Metaphor.
Purchase Xbox Game Pass.
Oh, was it on a Game Pass? Or even better?
It's Game Pass, yeah.
Win-win. We've got quite a lot of news regarding Xbox and Game Pass actually in this week's show. I've wrapped up on Sly 2. Band of Thieves, finished it, got the platinum, so that's my 150th platinum. Guess it gets a little special mention for being 150. I really enjoyed it. A lot better than the first one. Just kind of like leveled everything up in terms of exploration, teamwork, playing as multiple characters. Some of the story plots and stuff were quite interesting. Very quirky early 2000s storyline for like a cartoon. Doesn't really have that much like grounded in reality, but it's fun all the same. And I'll definitely be playing probably Sly 3 probably before the year's out. I've enjoyed it that much. The last trophy to clean up I was quite grateful for because you had to sell 50 unique pieces of treasure, and basically when you walk around all of the levels you can pickpocket, because he is a thief, this raccoon. You can pickpocket from people's pockets, and you collect like random loot. But I didn't read the trophy list. I was just playing through the game, and then I realised I'd actually gone through probably the first couple of levels without meticulously looting people, just like doing it as and when I came across them. So I tactically kind of got a list of all the treasures that were there, and I need to sell 50, and there's 55 in the whole game, so I had like a five-piece limit of like wiggle room. And I thought, you know what, I'll go back to the first 2 levels because chances are that's when I wasn't paying attention the most. I was just finding my feet with the game, working my way through the story. And it popped midway through level 2. So I was like, and there's 8 levels. So I was like, yes, didn't have to go through like the whole story campaign again and like track these 50 pieces of treasure. I had like, similar you were saying about spreadsheet, I had a document open, every piece of treasure, and when I found it on my replay through, highlighted it in green, and got to level 2 out of 8, and it popped. So I was like, oh, that saved me like 2 hours of grind.
I mean, it's nerdy as hell, but there again, you are listening to a gaming podcast, so if you think this is too nerdy, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I'm starting to do some trophy cleanup for a game, I do like a good spreadsheet. I'll sit there, make a Google sheet, and then you just have like, okay, trying to figure out, okay, what's the strategy? Yeah, I tend to play games just naturally first, and it's usually towards the end of my story playthrough that I will actually go, okay, what do I need to do? So I have one for Metaphor, and actually I have one for Pokemon trading card game.
Oh, that's getting deep in the weeds now.
It is. Every single Pokemon card that I do not have is listed, and what pack you need to get it from, so I can check them off. Yeah,
the actual app itself does a bad job of kind of monitoring where you can. I know initially when it was like the 3, the Mew, the Pikachu, and the Charizard pack, it was quite hard to figure out like if I'm missing so many, what pack should I be opening to?
That's it. That's why I did. That's why I did it. It's because I had it listed per pack. You could see which packs there's more cards you need to get from. So I was like, well, I'm going to focus on the Mewtwo packs. Yeah, because there's like twice the amount of cards I need from that than the Charizard one.
Makes statistics make sense.
Yeah.
So we've
and then I just kept it up.
basically create a meta game within a game. Just
I
to
wanna
add
catch
that
'em all.
extra level of well, you got to. It's in the title.
But I actually can't though. There's one, apart from the premium ones, there's one card I missed. I don't know if it'll ever come back around.
It's got to. That's unfair. I'd stop playing at that point if it was that type of game where it's like, oh, you missed your chance. Sorry. I'd be like, right, well, hate you all. But speaking of meta games, I did pick up a little game this week, which I've gone back to and had a little dabble. It popped up on my Amazon recommendations, and I remember when it was initially announced. But it's one of the limited run physical games that they've done. It's the Jurassic Park collection, like classic collection. So this includes
actually from Limited Run Games.
It is, yeah. It's published by them in physical form, which is quite
because that's what Limited Run Games do, isn't it? They do limited runs of old games and just onto modern hardware.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what, I got it. It was on Amazon for only £14. So I was like, actually, for that, I know like some of the games are pretty shit. Like it's got the Jurassic Park portable, like the old handheld. You know, we just had the console had one game on it. That was it. It's got Jurassic Park 8-bit, Jurassic Park 16-bit, Jurassic Park from the Sega Genesis, Jurassic Park Rampage Edition from the Sega Genesis, which I do have on cartridge, kicking around. Jurassic Park 2 The Chaos Continues for another portable, and Jurassic Park 2 The Chaos Continues 16-bit. So it's got some proper old school ones. For me, though, it was basically about getting the Genesis version, but on modern hardware. Because that's the one where I really loved it as a kid. It's one of my like kind of touchstone points for Jurassic Park and video games. I think I got it in the instance. I think I went to the dentist and I'd had a tooth taken out. And you know when like your parents go like, "Oh, we'll get you something to make you feel better for the rest of the day, of the week, for going through such an arduous time." And I think I got that much money from my teeth for that particular one-off. I got Jurassic Park on the Mega Drive, and I remember immediately forgetting about the pain in my mouth and was like, "Fuck yeah, I know what I'm doing all weekend."
When you think about it, it's like, oh, it's my parents showing like sympathy. Like, I went through a hard time and got my tooth knocked out. I was like, no, they were sick of you complaining, so they want something to make you shut up.
Maybe, and I thought it was a fairy that did it. But so I'm enjoying that one. And my brother has lent me Dynasty Warriors Origins as well, after completing it himself. So after buying every game in the series during our rummage around the gaming market the other week, I've finally got the latest entry. So
there's no one being announced. But we'll get to that.
We will get to that. We will. Because as I said, we do have a great show lined up for everyone. Of course, shout out to our wonderful guild heroes. We couldn't do this without you, all the wonderful members who support the channel extra little bit further, just like you can. If you enjoy the content we do here, if you want to see more content from us, in fact, or just keep supporting us that extra little bit more, you can click join over on YouTube. You get early access to this very show. You get early access to things like the Clickercast when we put that up as well. We do drop special videos from time to time, and you do get stickers and badges next to your name. But ultimately, it's just about showing us.
Stat.
It does, yeah. It's got the meta game is you get extra points on life.
So when you go to romance someone, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you've got those stats for helping us out. But in all honesty, I think the biggest thing for me, looking through the numbers, like the channel's doing really well recently. The videos that go up do really, really well. We don't know how, but I think the biggest thing for me, and I don't know if you've maybe noticed, Richie, is it's the not engagement levels, but I feel like we don't hear from people as much. Like we get lots of people checking out the videos, which is great to see, but we don't know who they are. We don't know who you are. We've got like our core members of the channel, of course. The
Discord's quite active.
The Discord is active, but I think I'd like to be able to just somehow connect with them a little bit more. So if you are out there and you are listening and you're watching on YouTube, or you are one of those dirty freeloaders listening on free services, hopefully we haven't scared you off from free podcast services yet. But yeah, just do us a favour and head on over to some kind of chat, whether it's on Twitter or Threads or our Facebook page. The probably easiest one is just the comments to this very video, but just let us know you're still out there and you still listen. There's probably a lot of people who've listened for many, many years now, and we haven't seen your name in quite some time. So just remind us that you are out there. It'll warm our hearts this Valentine's Day to see a familiar face in the chat or in the comments. Because again, it's weird sometimes. I think we see a couple of regular people, but there's a lot of you out there, and you're listening right now. You're on your commute to work. You may be sat chilling in the house. You've got an earphone in. You're doing the dishes, whatever it may be. And you listen to our voice every single week, but we don't hear that from you. So it's almost like sometimes we're putting content out into the void and the YouTube algorithm that is. But yeah, we'd love to hear more from you, our audience that essentially makes this hobby a reality. So shout to you listening. Happy Valentine's Day again, and thanks for the support. But Richie, everyone's not here to listen to us blab on about what we're playing and the meta stats of a game and everything. But we can't get into the thick of the show until you introduce us to the
graciously gathered GamerGuild Gazette, aka the lovely news.
The lovely news. course, this show does go up like 4 days after Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
so
we're recording Valentine's
all
Day.
these references already outdated. It's a fake holiday anyway, folks. It's a fake holiday. I think I got my wife a Valentine's card this year that literally said, I wish I'd found you sooner so I could spend more time annoying you. that was about
that's perfect for you.
That's about it. Yeah. So yeah, she got me one. I think she got me one.
The thing is, you've known your wife quite a lot longer since you've been together. So like,
it's funny. And then her return card to me was, "I love you to the moon and back, but sometimes I wish I could leave you there." So it's like, yeah,
you know what? I love it.
That's fair. But of course, speaking of lovely things, our top news story of the week.
My girlfriend got when we said, "Let's be weird together."
That could have many connotations.
It was a Leland. It was a Stitch and what's Stitch's partner called? The pink one, Pink Stitch.
Angel.
Yeah.
My daughter loves them. But yes, as speaking of lovely things, we're here for our top story of the week. And thankfully, we had some PlayStation news drop, which will probably make up the bulk of the show. We got a lot of game announcements from the first State of Play PlayStation. We had 40 minutes of content drop this week. We were going to cover it on a live stream, but we've had a busy schedule with The Last of Us stream and then recording this podcast on a Friday night. And then we didn't want 3 days on the bounce between work and other things, so apologies for no live reaction. But the great thing with our show is we round it up at the end of the week, so you get your news anywhere regardless. And we have a bit of time to kind of digest the content and break it down a bit more for your viewing and listening pleasure. So, State of Play out the way, Richie. That means PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo have all had some kind of showcase at the beginning of this year now, which is quite good going considering we're only in the middle of February. But what I did enjoy about this State of Play is it was quite succinct. I thought it trickled along at quite a decent pace. It didn't really feel like 40 minutes when I was watching it. And even though there's a lot of games in here that I'll probably just appreciate from a distance, it all looked quite good. The content was quite solid throughout. I felt, what were your overall thoughts?
I think it was a fairly solid State of Play, because State of Play, I'm not expecting a massive PlayStation first party drop. I'm not expecting The Last of Us and Uncharted, a Spider-Man or something like that. But there was some solid entries, some things that in there that I wasn't expecting. That I looked at and went, "Ooh, I could be in for this."
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised.
Some other things where I'm looking at and going, very much no, but. Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest things...
It was always down to a personal preference, the nose, not down to this looks terrible.
Yeah, I agree. And what I did really appreciate is most things had a date on them, which was nice to see. And I think for the most part, it was a date for this year or like not too far out. So we'll get into it. We'll break it down. I think initially my thought was to go through it chronologically, but you kind of find the good stuff, which is ironically left to the end of the show. You want to talk, you have the least time to talk about it because we want to move on to the rest of the news for the week. So I think we've broken it down into more probably the size of the games. We've put some of the bigger ones at the top and some of the smaller ones. Unfortunately, the little indie games will get left to the back of the pile. Sorry, Digimon Time Stranger. But let's kick things off, Richie. We got a trailer which wrapped out the show for a new game from Housemarque, which are, of course, famous most recently for their Returnal new IP, which was made after Sony acquired them a couple of years back. They've decided not to do a sequel to Housemarque's very successful Returnal, nor Two-Turnal for us. They showed us a trailer for a new game called Saros. I think that's how we're going to pronounce it, right? Saros?
Yeah, I think it's Saros.
Saros, coming in 2026. This is a new third-person action title, which involves the satisfying gameplay that you enjoyed so much in Returnal, apparently. Today, they're very proud to announce it's coming to PS5 with PS5 Pro enhancements in 2026. It's the ultimate evolution of the Housemarque gameplay-first experience. The trailer kind of shows a gentleman washed by the beach. You might recognise him. He's portrayed by Rahul Kohli, who's like a British actor. I think he's quite popular in the games industry. He does a couple of YouTube things with... I think he's actually Alana Pierce's boyfriend. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure they're like a thing. And he does podcasts with like Troy Baker and stuff. So he's in that kind of gaming circle out in the California, San Francisco
He's been on
area.
The press influencer side as well as the developer side, as well as being an actor. he's well integrated into the gaming industry.
He is, absolutely. So reading from the PlayStation blog, after Returnal, we knew we had created something and award-winning, but we also knew we wanted Returnal to stand on its own. With this in mind, we decided to create a new IP, which evolves our deep third-person action and mysterious storytelling. Saros is an action game with the haunting story of a lost world colony on Carcosa under an ominous eclipse. You play as Aryun Devraj, a powerful Sultari enforcer who will stop at nothing to find who he is looking for. Our goal is to create an emotional and powerful character study that explores the cost it takes to create a new future. Aryun is performed by Rahul Kohli. Actually, people might remember him from The Fall of the House of Usher, which was, I think, a Netflix thing. Rahul is truly bringing Aryun to life in a newly stunning performance. He's been a brilliant collaborator to tell our story and champion for the game. A key gameplay distinction between Saros and Returnal is permanent resources and progression, making every death valuable. After every death, you will face a changed world, but in Saros, you will be able to choose and permanently upgrade your loadout from an evolving set of weapons and suit upgrades to come back stronger, to overcome the challenges you face on Carcosa. We can't wait to share more about gameplay, art, audio, music, story, and design as we push the PS5 console to its limits. Expect more later this year. It's an interesting one, this one, because I never really vibe with Returnal, not because I don't like Housemarque games. Some of their original arcade shoot ones on the PS4 were fantastic, like Super Stardust and such.
I think you have to look at Returnal though as a new era of Housemarque. So what came before isn't really what Housemarque are now as a developer.
Yeah, very true. They made that distinction. I think they actually put out a post saying that their arcade-style games, they're not profitable in today's world, and they pivoted towards something different, which spawned Returnal. So credit where credit's due. They made a new IP. It was very well reviewed. It won loads of awards. It did almost create like a new genre in a weird way, because it is roguelike, but it's a 3D roguelike.
It's a 3D third-person action roguelike, which I think it had been done, but not to the quality.
Yeah, with that AAA Sony polish.
They were the ones that popularized it.
Mm-hmm. But not an easy decision to not make a sequel. Do you think they're in the same universe? Like, it sounds it's almost the same, but it's not quite.
I don't think so. I think the thing with a roguelite is, while it seems like they are putting a little bit of story in here, the focal point of a roguelike is very much gameplay. That's because you're meant to fail over and over and over again, so you get better as a player. It's all about the gameplay loop rather than the narrative. So I don't think if they could theoretically make them part of the same universe, but I don't know if that would actually strengthen the game, or just by having this other tie hold it back.
Yeah, we should point out for audio listeners as well, the kind of trailer showcased his character, who's obviously an ecliptical enforcer, going out. It was very like orange fire hue, everything on a mysterious like desert planet, and he was basically fighting. It looks like he's heading towards an eclipse. That the planet has a constant eclipse, but he's going to fight some kind of like demon with 6 arms that kind of has like solar balls on the end of each arm. So we don't know. I'm guessing there's going to be like arena boss fights in this world as well.
What did you make of the trailer?
I think visually it looked great. It didn't really tell me much about the game, but I think knowing Returnal the way we do, I know probably what it's going to look like and what it's going to play like. Yeah, essentially Returnal, but you don't lose all your shit when you die, which is more appealing to me.
I felt it was a nothing trailer. It looked It looked absolutely stunning. But it's also, throughout the entire trailer, it says not actual gameplay. It's not an in-engine trailer. It's a CG rendering that tells you basically nothing about the game. So it's like, I don't know, it just did absolutely nothing for me.
Well, they did say they're going to tell us more later in the year, and we kind of have the same thing with Death Stranding 2 didn't get anything at the showcase, but they've officially said it's going to be at South by Southwest, I think, in like a month's time. I wouldn't be surprised if Housemarque will keep... Again, they said more later this year, so...
Yeah, I think this is a case of where I'm critical of this trailer, because it just literally did nothing. You get one of these, the next one, I think, if you're making a narrative-driven game, you might be able to do another narrative trailer. Yeah. The next trailer, I think, for Saros has to be in-engine gameplay.
Yeah, I think
because that's what's going to sell. That's what's going to sell the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But
I hope it does well for them. hope they don't get burnt by not doing just a Returnal 2 with that like brand recognition almost, like more of the same, but like level up a little bit. So a decision was made. And what I do like is this kind of like now shows us that PlayStation is starting to show us their cards. We now know what Naughty Dog are working on. We know Ghosts of Yotei is coming later on. We now know what Housemarque are doing. So we're actually getting to that point where a couple of the studios are starting to show their hand, and it's nice to see as a PlayStation 5 owner what the future could potentially look like. Moving on from that, though, because as you said, we don't really know much about it. We then got a surprise one, which was Mindseye, and they showed 2 trailers. It was a CGI cinematic one, but then, ironically, back to the point you were just making there, Richie, we then also got some gameplay. So they actually showed quite a lot of this one over the course of like about a 3-minute period. We should point out Mindseye is from the it's one of the Rockstar founders. So he's very kind of broken away, and this is his kind of like first entry into the game. And you can kind of almost see the Grand Theft Auto roots in the gameplay a little bit. It's very clear, very polished, but essentially, Mindseye, it's a narrative-driven, single-player action-adventure thriller set in the not-too-distant future in the fictional desert city of Red Rock, where artificial intelligence and human greed collide to bring Earth to the precipice of collapse. It's a compelling story with strategic combat, high-octane driving, and endless entertainment. Our team at Builder Rocket Boy, terrible name for a studio, has worked passionately to create a game that will deliver and players an exceptional experience this year. So this is coming this summer. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a delay on it, but it came seemingly out of nowhere. And this one was kind of one that I looked at and thought, actually, you know what? With like its cyberpunk aesthetic, I'd like to think the leadership of a Rockstar employee who's, let's face it, delivered banger after banger after banger in his career so far. We've seen some standout games. It's interesting because it gives me almost like Spec Ops: The Line vibes a little bit. It's got that like Division-esque like third-person shooter cover mechanics with a couple of like AI drone things kind of sprinkled in with like a cyberpunk tint on it, and it's like it looks good.
I was watching the state of play with my girlfriend, and we both kind of looked at it when this looks like the Division meets Grand Theft Auto, and that is before I knew it was made by a former Rockstar employee. Yeah. So that's why I found it funny, especially when you mentioned the Division. Is like, that's what it looks like to me. It's like
it's got that vibe. Yeah. They're going to talk about it's going to have a focus on driving elements, which I think is an interesting selling point because very few games I think actually focus on vehicles now outside of Need for Speed and let's face it, Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. There's very little games that are story linear where you spend much time in a vehicle. You do obviously in Cyberpunk, but not that much. But yeah, coming this summer, so you won't have to wait long to see it. You do have a companion drone. It says narrative driven. It takes you sequences through diverse environments, bustling cityscapes, remote industrial sites, trailer parks and deserts, immersing you in a world that feels alive and in constant motion. So they're using a lot of them buzzwords.
It needs to set itself apart from Grand Theft Auto because seemingly your first impression and my first impression is this looks Grand Theft Auto-y, and Grand Theft Auto's due out this year.
Yeah. Well, it needs to come out before GTA.
It can come out after, as long as they've done enough through the marketing beat to really define this as not a Grand Theft Auto clone. Showcase what is unique and interesting about it.
I mean, it looks Grand Theft Auto in its style, but I think it doesn't look anywhere near like what a Grand Theft Auto is because of the cyberpunk aesthetic over it. Like that's not GTA for me. I picture GTA as like contemporary. It takes place like in the current world, whereas this having drones and AI iRobot. They have the cyberpunk.
They have the kind of technological link to it, but showcase how that interacts with the gameplay. That doesn't make it the Grand Theft Auto clone with a sci-fi twist.
Yeah. It says in the blog as well, at the heart of Mindseye is Jacob Diaz, a former soldier who finds himself haunted by flashbacks of a covert mission that changes life forever. Fitted with the mysterious neural implant known as the Mind's Eye, Jacob is plagued by fragmented memories and is desperate to uncover the truth about his past. He arrives in Red Rock hoping to discover about the company responsible for creating his implant. His quest for the answers start as a personal journey, but it quickly evolves into something much larger. He's not the only one searching for the truth, and the forces working in the shadows may be more powerful and dangerous than he ever imagined. So I think that's where I'm getting the Spec Ops: The Line vibe, where it's like soldiers in a doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and do they get held accountable for it? Or these like fragmented flashbacks. We could have a bit of like time jumps somewhere maybe in this. Like, how did he get the implant? Why does he have the implant? Is he an ex-military type? He knows how to use guns.
I feel like this is going. I feel like this has the potential to be a massive hit.
Or a massive flop. It could just be a one that comes and goes.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit like Just Cause as well.
Yeah.
But with a bit more polish.
I'm leaning towards it being a hit more than the flop, to be honest. I think it's a not for me. But as I said at the start, it's like there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm not particularly interested in myself, but it's not down to quality. Mm-hmm. It's down to personal preference that I'm like,
yeah.
And that's why I'm looking at it and going, I've never been a huge fan of Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
I actually don't think this is sacrilege actually for a game podcast. I don't think Grand Theft Auto games play that well. I don't think the control schemes and just the gameplay is that good. It always feels a bit janky to me, even Grand Theft Auto 5. They're insanely popular beyond belief, so I'm clearly wrong.
I mean,
any game that looks like it plays like a Grand Theft Auto, I just like go,
yeah. I mean,
it just doesn't do it for me.
I'd agree with you to some degree because the game is like 11-year-old at this point. So
but when it first came out, I thought it was janky.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like the movement's never been the smoothest. I mean, it's kind of a jack of all trades, but it's a master of none in a way because it does so much. So yeah, I can see where you're coming from. But Mindseye, that's another big one that we got out of this showcase. Next up, we got one that we knew about because I think there was some leaks or rumors, but I don't think anyone ever expected to be that real. And that was, we're getting a Days Gone remaster that's coming this April 25th. This is Ben's Studio, of course, provide a look. Better remember, Ben's Studio just had their most recent project, Kill Dead in the Water. That was they were working on, was it the God of War multiplayer?
Yeah, I think
games
so.
Set, whatever that was. But thankfully they've been working in the background. I remember Days Gone, very much loved PlayStation game by a lot of people, but critically it came out to 7s maybe on its review scale. Because it had it
limped out the door.
It limped out the door, and then when the players got their hands on it, there was like some back and forth about the build of it. Everyone who reviewed the game had the build without the day one patch, and that caused a lot of problems. So when a lot of the audience got their hands on it, they were like, "This is fine. There is nothing wrong with this." So there's never really been a better time to go back and play Days Gone. I personally think it's like a brilliant game. I really loved the hard mechanics. If you enjoy World War Z. Or Helldivers, you'll enjoy this.
I actually don't know how much reviews actually sway people's like interest in the game though nowadays. I actually think the actual mainstream marketing of the game matters way more than the reviews.
It had a lot of problems.
How many gamers who are actually reading the reviews? I think it's a minority of us.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you look back at sales, remember the director who left under like bad circumstances. His biggest thing was they pitched a Days Gone sequel. And other things have been greenlit when Days Gone sequel wasn't, even though it sold way more than the rest of those ones that got greenlit.
Because it's in their perception. I think is
it's so warped and weird. Because remember, if you look at the PC ports, this was I think maybe the third game PlayStation port to PC. It sold like 7 million copies on PC, which is more than Spider-Man, Miles Morales, definitely more than the Uncharted series sold. It sold a hell of a lot more than. Sackboy's Big Adventure and a couple of other ones. I think it's third out of all the PC ports. I think it's Ragnarok and Spider-Man are the top two, and then Days Gone is sitting in third with like over 7 million units shipped. So it sold well, and the reason I like that this is back, I feel like this gives people the opportunity to, if you liked what you heard about or you liked it the first time around, remember what Shuhei Yoshida said in his exit interview with Kind of Funny? Studios need you to buy remasters to fund new IP and new productions. So if you're a fan of Days Gone, you've been on the fence, now is the time to maybe check it out. April 25th, you are getting a brand new remastering of it. They've added loads of new features as well. It's been built for the PS5. They say in the blog post they've added quality mode, increased resolution, performance. Again, this game's like 7-year-old now, 6-year-old at this point. So it's probably required a good bit of a boost.
Yeah, on this actually, because these are $10 upgrade. I've kind of changed my mind on the $10 upgrades for PlayStation. I was always quite negative with them because I've always looked at it and go, well, on PC and Xbox, you get the best version of the game that's available. But if it is an actual remaster, then they'll actually work as when to improve the game. If it's a case of like the game came out on PS4 and PS5, and the difference is they've turned down some sliders for PS4. That should be a free upgrade. That you should get the best version of the game, whatever platform you're playing. But for an actual remaster, as long as effort has went into taking what the game was to make it improve it, then I think $10 is reasonable.
Oh, absolutely. Like reading through this list, they've added in obviously the graphic fidelity features, increased foliage, draw distance, shadows, light, all the usual stuff.
I don't agree with them pulling the old versions, though. I don't think they've done that here, but it's happened before.
Well, it's just a PS4 version, so...
Yeah,
it just
PS4
exists.
version should be still there on the store.
Yeah. DualSense controller support, which is going to be massively different, because remember, the DualSense wasn't a thing when this version first came out.
Yeah.
It's back in the day.
Special Edition 13.
Exactly. I forgot I had the special edition one, actually. Now I'm looking at it with your fancy art book. I will say Days Gone, what it does have, and I probably still attest to this today, is the menu. They use the touchpad for the menu better than any other game. So it's all like swipe functions. So if you want the map, I think you swipe up. If you want something else, you swipe right. So not too similar to, I think, the way Ghost of Tsushima does it, but just really clean, like white and black layout. You have to kind of see it to believe it. But yeah, so now with the DualSense support, that could add a lot of new features in. They've added a ton of accessibility features in. So, you know, like we were talking about with the Last of Us stream this week about like the color coordination. You can, if you've got like vision impaired or audio impaired, you can have things like audio cues, collectible cues, controller remapping, field of view sliders, high contrast mode, in and amongst a bunch of other ones. So that's great. More accessibility for more people. A big thing they've added, which I think is key, is they've added something called Horde Assault, which is a survival arcade mode. Now, the biggest draw of this game was the hordes. Think World War Z. You're talking 100 zombies after you, or freakers, I think they're called in this game, at any given time. And one of the scariest things in this game is needing to go into one of their nests, which is like a cave or something, and get something. But when you start to go in, I kid you not, you're trying to creep past, like, you know, when we were doing The Last of Us and there's like 5 or 6 of them in the room, there's like 30, 40 of them in this cave, and if you trigger one of the little nest points, you want to get the hell out of there, and it's run and gun, and they chase you over walls, over cars, through trees. It's some scary shit, and you got to hop on your motorbike and race away, and they fling themselves at you, and it's definitely a moment in time. But yeah, beautiful backgrounds, but arcade mode, they've added a couple of familiar regions from within the main game, so that's going to be something I'm definitely going to want to check out. With more playable characters, new cosmetics, a bunch of other stuff. They've added permadeath mode as well, and additional content. I won't go into all of it, but as you alluded to, pricing for pre-order bonus, it's got a $10, £10 upgrade path. I don't know if they've actually said what $50 for the original, just buying it outright. So it's not a £70 price game. So it's cheaper to buy outright, but it's also, if you've got the disc for the original one or you own the original one, £10 upgrade path gets you things as well, including speedrun, permadeath mode, survival arcade, and more importantly, a new shiny platinum trophy as well. If you want to do that. New game modes, go get them trophy hunters, is what it says. So yeah, all in all, I'm surprised that PlayStation went with this one. Like, let's face it, I think I tweeted out this week saying the Order 1886 has its 10th anniversary this Thursday. RIP. There's actually some news on that later on. And Bloodborne, I think, also has its 10th anniversary in March. So you've got 2 PlayStation IP, which you could argue maybe Days Gone is more beloved than The Order, maybe. I think they both have like a cult following.
Yeah, it's a cult following.
But from a sales perspective, you can't deny Days Gone sold more than The Order on PS4.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the reason they've picked this game is because there is rumoured to be a live-action Days Gone in the works.
That's true. That is true, yeah. It could be like one
I
of those...
don't know if it's fully confirmed, but this might be a case of let's kind of get the interest going again. Get this back in the news cycle, get people thinking about Days Gone. Get more hands on the game before we announce the TV show or movie, whatever it's going to be.
There's a report from Deadline in 2022 saying there's a Days Gone movie in the works with PlayStation Productions.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's like 2022 is like 3
vague,
years.
Yeah.
It's 2 to 3 years ago. It's not up to date.
I could see it happening. Like The Walking Dead is one of the most successful TV shows of all time, so there's obviously a hunger for that type of genre. It does apply.
But they've also got The Last of Us TV show on at the moment, and one of the problems with Days Gone was it kept getting compared to The Last of Us. They're different games. but it happened.
Yeah, but TV audience is very different as well. Like, as people out there, like again, what Twisted Metal's just got a second season on Peacock. A trailer just dropped this week. It's like I don't associate Twisted Metal with any of the PlayStation thing. I think Days Gone though, because it has the motorbike angle from it. There's a lot of Sons of Anarchy fans out there as well who would maybe take a motorbike / zombie TV show and do it quite well.
It would pull in the Walking Dead crowd more than the Last of Us crowd.
I agree. And I wouldn't expect the production quality of The Last of Us either. But yeah, Days Gone, you're getting it in April. It's also coming to PC, we should point out as well, on the same date with all these updates. So if you do have the PC version, they've added all the perks on, as it called, the Broken Road DLC for $10. So obviously they can't do the upgrade path on PC because it's not internally ran by PlayStation, the sales. It's through Steam and whatever. But it's basically they've added it on as DLC. So it's like a clever workaround for getting people to boost up to the extra packs. But it does go back to Richie. It tells me that one day, all of your beloved PlayStation games, I think we will see remasters or sequels to them. Like, I know we joke, but I think we will get a Bloodborne at some point. We will get an Order 1886 at some point. Once enough time has passed, and it's easier to go back and remaster something than make something new.
If you ever want to think about like why you should hope for this stuff, Final Fantasy VII, a remake of Final Fantasy VII, was probably the most sought after video game for a long time, and now we're 2/3 of the way through it.
And you'll want another remaster.
So it can happen. Ocarina of Time has already been remade in 3D, and I'd still love a remake of that game.
Just give me more.
Give me it for the Switch too, Nintendo. Don't be coward. Just fucking do it.
Wow, get a bit aggressive with Nintendo there. Next up, we got a quick trailer for Split Fiction, which is, of course, the new one from Joseph Fares and Haze-like Studios. We know this is coming imminently. He actually said at the Game Awards, he actually let slip it was coming in March anyway. He said you'll be playing it in like 3 months or something. So if you remember, it's the same as It Takes Two. It's 2 characters, fantasy. We got a date of March 6th. So it's actually like, 3 weeks away?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. They just showed off more of the traversal, more of the open gameplay. Game looks great. We'll definitely have to do something on the channel for this one, Richie, I think, because it's such a two-player thing. But we'll see where it fits in with our timelines and streaming categories. But I really enjoyed It Takes Two. Of course, Game of the Year winning It Takes Two, we should point out. So there's high hopes for Split Fiction.
It's only 40 quid on Steam.
Yeah, and you get 2 copies, remember, as well.
Yeah.
So there's 2 copies. So it's essentially 20 quid a copy if you're playing it with someone online.
Yeah. Well, again, this is one I think I want to play with my girlfriend as well, so I'm probably going to be picking it up. I don't know if I'll be picking it up day and date.
Do you still get 2 copies if you play locally? So if you and her play it locally, does that mean you still get... Surely you still must get like a digital code to share with someone non-couch co-op-y?
I literally have no idea.
Because how would they know?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it is just couch co-op. I think the way I think it works is it's couch co-op. It's you register. Say if I bought the game, I register it in my account, and I can have someone else play with me who doesn't have the game. So it's not like you get 2 copies.
Yeah.
So if I own the game, you couldn't just play without me with someone else. You could only play with me because you'd be playing on my copy of the game. So it's a co-op game. So either we're sat next to each other on the couch or you're playing through the PSN.
Yeah, but the PSN needs to give a code to someone to download externally, right? Like if I want to play with my brother, how would I do that?
Maybe you can just download. Maybe something built into the game where you can actually just download it for free, but you can't play without authenticating or something. So I have to invite you in or something.
Split Fiction.
I'm not quite sure how it works.
2 copies. Players will just need 1 copy of the game to play online co-op with friends as a version of It Takes Two. It Takes Two's Friend Pass will be available for Split Fiction. In an interview with Gamertag Radio, Haze-like Studios, Joseph Fares confirmed that just 1 player will need to have a copy of Split Fiction for it to work. It Takes Two and Way Out discuss the game's new features, explain co-op foundation. online approach to co-op. Like in It Takes Two, confirmed that split fiction will with someone online, only one player needs a copy of the game. It feels like they said the same thing 3 times in the article now. This takes after Take-Two's Friend Pass, a feature that allows one player to download the pass and then connect with their friend who has the game. So you download, as the person who doesn't own it, you download a version of the game called Friend Pass. So it looks like if you go to the PSN store, there's going to be a game of split fiction, Friend Pass. You download that version.
Copy of the game would be linked to mine.
To someone else's, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. We'll figure it out, though. But again, it's industry changing, I guess. No other game does that, and Hazelight's done it 3 times in a row now.
I think...
Good for them.
What I love about Hazelight is they unashamedly make co-op games. They're not making single-player games. They're not making multiplayer games. They're not making a co-op experience that you can play on your own. It's like going, no, we are making a co-op game. Everything about the game needs to be co-op for it to work. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're enabling you to do that. Mm-hmm. We found an interesting way to do that. So it shows like the level of detail they're thinking about. How do we ensure that 2 people can play the game without... Because I know why I said, what's about £40 on Steam?
Yeah.
If me and you had to buy a copy each, that's an £80 game. And we can't play it without each other. Mm-hmm. So they've found a way to do it, and it seems like it worked quite well.
Praise for them. It's nice to see consumer-friendly practices.
It's nice to see. I'm all for diversity in games and in every single aspect, diversity of genre, and the fact that they, as I said, unashamedly making co-op games. Going, this game is co-op. What can we do with a 2-player game? That's kind of the philosophy behind the studio.
Absolutely. So, and you won't have to wait long to find out as well. 3 weeks' time, I'm sure early previews are going to go up soon, no doubt. Moving on, we had a trailer for Borderlands 4 and a release date. We got 23rd of September it comes out, so later on this year. It's a weird one with Borderlands, Richie. I really feel like I don't want to say this about any game, but I just feel like I'm getting big vibes of this one that just no one cares about Borderlands anymore. Like the movie bombed. Tales from the Borderlands, the last kind of story narrative Telltale-esque version, came and went without an absolute, didn't even make a drop in the ocean. And I just get the vibe from this one that just no one cares anymore. Like, am I wrong? You're a Borderlands fan. Your brother loves and plays number 2 still.
Yeah, I'm getting the same vibes I got from 3, where it just feels like just more Borderlands. You know how like the last Far Cry came out?
Yeah,
Like, it's just more Far Cry. It's just more I think it's a franchise that needs to kind of redefine. It needs to have that kind of glow up moment of its genre, because it's just a first person. It's got the same comedic values, same aesthetics. Mm-hmm. Same kind of first-person shooter mechanics built with a few RPG twists to it.
Yeah,
all this is good stuff, but it just feels at this moment in time just like Borderlands 4.
Yeah, it is,
and I feel like I want it to reach a bit further, do something to make me not go, that's what you do, and that's how you're elevating the genre.
Yeah, in an ironic way, I think, because we've praised them so much because the art style's held up so well over the generations and the years. It's almost like because of the diminishing returns on that cel-shaded art style, and the games all, even though like 1 to 4, they all look so similar. And because it is first person as well, you're only ever really going to see a gun on the end of a camera. You're not seeing enough almost to make it feel different. And as someone who's enjoyed like 1 and 2 and got the platinum in the Telltale Borderlands game, I went into 3 thinking like, cool, but like literally it did nothing to... Like, I had fun when me and Tom were playing it back in 2019, but it just did nothing that made me want to keep playing it beyond us like having just like a romp around on Pandora.
Yeah.
And then when I look at number 4, it looks, again, I know I would have fun playing it, but nothing makes me want to go out and actively buy it or play it unless it just happens to be on Game Pass by chance.
Like, I really, really enjoy Borderlands, but I'm looking at this and going, you know what this is more likely to do as we gear up back probably in September when we're probably covering it almost weekly in the news. I'm probably going to go, I could just play 2 or 3 or pre-sequel or 1.
Yeah.
Like, rather than dropping 60 quid in this game, I could just get that itch I get from Borderlands somewhere on a game that I already own. And that's where I think the problem is. It's not that it's a bad game in any stretch of the imagination. It's probably objectively the best Borderlands game they've ever made.
But like you said,
but I could go back and play 2, which is a game I love. I haven't played in years. And I probably have as good a time, and I wouldn't have dropped a penny on it.
Yeah. They also need to stop putting Randy Pitchford on the stage at all these damn events, because the guy's still going through like allegations of like sexual harassment and bad workplace environments and toxic management culture, and he still gets on stage. It's like he's got to deal with all the games.
He's the head of the studio.
I know, but I think like he's just got this like really weird like vibe about him that I think people are just like, dude, stop.
Well,
like just
going to my point where even if you don't own Borderlands, if I was to buy, if someone went to me like, Richie, it's September, I'm interested in playing a Borderlands game. New one's coming out. Should I buy that for £60? I go, no. At the time I'm looking on Steam, Borderlands 3 has got a 90% discount down to £5.
damn.
Borderlands 2 VR, $9.99. Borderlands 2, $4.99. Borderlands pre-sequel, which came out after Borderlands 2, $2.99. Original Borderlands 2, $49. It's like, go buy all of them first.
Yeah.
They all hold up incredibly well. And if you get through like Borderlands 1, 2, pre-sequel, and 3, and still want more Borderlands, then buy Borderlands 4.
Yeah. You could go spend 15 quid and have three of the best looter shooters going, and it'd hold up great.
4. Because there's a pre-sequel as well.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't buy all 4 though. You got to draw the line somewhere. I think 15 quid
true,
for just the original trilogy is a great starting point.
Well, exactly. Well, I think it's like it's under 20 quid for 4 games right now on Steam. Yeah, it is on sale. It is on sale, but
do you get the movie free with any of them?
No.
They should pay you to watch the movie, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. After Borderlands, again, we won't hang around too much on that. We got the Directive 8020, which is the new game from Supermassive, which is the team behind The Quarry, of course, Until Dawn, which obviously recently just got its a new make one as well.
It's a Dark Pictures one, isn't it?
No, I don't think this one is. I think
it
actually
is.
Oh, is it?
Says, yeah, on like the splash screen for the video, it says a Dark Pictures game.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I thought they'd finished with all those.
It might be the next season.
There's another season of it?
I think they announced it. I'm sure we covered it. But it's definitely a Dark Pictures game.
Oh, well, fair enough. Let's have a look what the blog post says about Directive. Supermassive Games reveals a new trailer and gameplay details. Quickly skip all that. October 2nd is the date you're getting it. I think the difference for this one is it takes place in a sci-fi world, which typically these games have all been quite grounded on Earth. There's been no alien. There's been like horror stuff in every single one of them, but not alien kind of like spooky stuff in space. In this one, they say the team of Supermassive has worked tirelessly to craft a narrative experience that melds sci-fi exploration with spine-chilling horror, where every choice could lead to a disastrous death. Today, we're unveiling some new layers to our story, exploring fragile alliances, unseen threats, and the limits of human resilience when faced with our deepest fears. We're venturing into uncharted territory, the unsettling abyss of space. Earth is dying and mankind is seeking a new home in the stars. The Cassiopeia is the initial survey ship sent to scout our new chosen planet. Think of it as a bit of a test run. It's fully outfitted as a colony craft, but it is flying with a vastly reduced crew. Their mission is to test every procedure on board without ever touching down on the planet they've been sent into orbit for. However, can't read today. People familiar with our games will know that our characters never have it easy, and Directive 8020 will all start to go wrong very quickly with some very deadly consequences. So it's got aliens, it's got a skeleton crew, it's got some new mechanics being added, but you're right, it is part of the Dark Pictures Anthology, which I don't know how at all this all links in together. I don't think if there's a narrative thread to link them all in, but they do shit these out pretty quick at Supermassive, and they always look gorgeous, and they always do quite well. Like 7.5 seems to be like the average, but you know, I can't fault them for the cadence.
You know, the best thing about this game is, for a horror game, it's coming out in October.
Perfect.
You got the correct month. Well done.
So they must be getting to the end of these though, right? We've had Man and Medan. Now my brain's blanked on the other like 6 of them.
Little Hope.
Little
Man of
Hope.
Medan.
The Quarry wasn't part of it, right? The
Quarry
was
wasn't one
separate.
of them.
Might as well be.
The Devil in Me.
Yeah.
House of Ashes.
Yeah. That's
Switchback VR and now Directive 8020. So season 1 is 29 to 2022. So let's start with Man of Medan and finish with Devil and Me. I'm just reading from Wiki. Season 2 starts this year with Directive 8020. So it's the start of a new season.
You know what? I might get them
I
all.
don't know what that means in terms of it because I've not played any of them. But
I don't think there is anything that necessarily links them all in. Switchback VR is not really part of the main one. I think that was like a separate.
Yeah. But going back to this game, I did got kind of at times some Alien vibes.
Yeah, I can see that.
It looks cool.
Dead Space as well. Interesting choice to pivot though. It must be nice for the team to do something like horror specific, but not the traditional one. Even like looking at the website, like the art style for the posters of Man of Medan, Little Hope, House of Ashes, Devil and Me are all like so similar with the skull kind of like prediction orb with the artwork inside, and then Directive 8020 is just like woman in a spacesuit, totally different.
They all have the curator as a recurring character across the 4 games. Not confirmed yet for season 2.
All right, he'll be back though. He's the guy from Jurassic Park: Lost World who gets killed by compies.
Pip Torrens,
that actor. He's actually in the Until Dawn movie as well. The actor, he's the only one who's actually transitioned into the movie from the games. But Directive 8020. Not too keen on the name. Doesn't really tell me what it's about.
Order 66.
Yeah, I guess. But coming out soon. Next up on our list, because we do have quite a lot of games.
I was trying to look. The lead character. She looks so familiar, and when you just can't quite put your finger on it. Mm-hmm. She's Maria Rambeau from the MCU.
Photon.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. They do good at bringing big names in.
Yeah.
Right, moving on then, because we've got a few games to get through. We got Lost Souls Aside, which is I looked at this one, and again, the only way I could describe it if I was to sell it to you, Richie, is it looks like a Final Fantasy game where you go through cross-dimensional portals.
Yes. Honestly, there was points where I thought, if this is Final Fantasy 16, I'm in. It's not Final Fantasy 17, sorry. But I think I'm in.
Yeah, it looks good. RPG launching May 30th, so again, you won't have to wait too long. What's that? There's a one-person dream. It's evolved into a sprawling adventure full of breathtaking visuals and adrenaline-pumping combat. And creating the world of Lost Souls Aside was painting with an imagination of that. These blogs go from really weird because they almost it's like a letter wrote to a friend sometimes, as opposed to an actual sales pitch of the game. So actually, I just want like a blurb of what the game's about, but it's hard to find. While combat takes center stage, Lost Souls Aside also weaves its narrative about Case's journey of redemption discovery, as he uncovers the truth about Arena and their shared power. Players will encounter a mix of personal challenges and high-stakes conflicts. The story focuses on creating memorable moments and connections, offering surprises without overwhelming the gameplay experience. And yes, there's plenty of drama, but who doesn't love a good gasp-worthy moment? Made for PlayStation, DualShock, DualSense, 4K eye candy is one of the bullet points. The world comes alive with dynamic lighting environments. It looks like there's going to be some PlayStation marketing for this one. It makes sense with it looking so much like a Final Fantasy game. But if you told me this was just Square Enix and it was like a Final Fantasy, one of the random spin-off titles that I have no clue what they're connected to, what they're about, I'd buy it.
I think it looks good enough to be a mainline Final Fantasy. And you know what? 60 quid. It's a cheaper price point, and I think it looks good. I'm in.
Good. It even looks like it's got the big giant boss fights. What they're called again? I can't think of the name of them.
I knew it wasn't Square Enix, but I was like, this could be a Final Fantasy game, which gets me interested.
Yeah. There's loads of interesting ones.
Yeah.
Next up, we also got a title called Metal Eden, which looks like Metal Gear Eden, which looks like a cyberpunk style shooter. Again, this is where I think a lot of the games, as much as aren't necessarily going to appeal to me, they all have a good vibe to them. which usually when we come out of these state of plays, we look at them and go like, it was just like CGI fodder, but a lot of the stuff they showed was quite catchy in it. Do we have any more info on Metal Eden?
What I like in an announcement trailer is when you do have some CGI stuff to set up the world, but then you also have some gameplay footage. So it gives those like people like us who need to talk about this stuff something to actually grab onto. I think this looks a little like just sci-fi shooter, a bit too much, but it doesn't look bad in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it's got some interesting combat. It does have a very what was the runner game called? Not Blade Runner, something runner. It's like a neon runner. No, nothing like that. It looks like that, like a 3D shooter. May 6th though, so not too long to wait for that one. Let's get through some more of these, Richie, because we've got quite a lot of games crammed into a 40-minute period.
We're about an hour into the show as well.
We got Lies of P Overture, which is some DLC for Lies of P coming out. Again, very, very beloved game. Some DLC for that one, I think, is always good.
Good game.
Yeah.
If you like your Soulsborne, recommend it.
It's quite a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of the game from what I've been told, but it looks like it takes place in a new area, almost like a Winter Wonderland zone. New enemies, new types to fight. And Lies of P is one that if it wasn't Souls-like, I'd have 100% been there for it.
Yeah,
if it was just an action-adventure RPG and you just walked around in this kind of retelling of Pinocchio's story, fighting boss fights and living in a steampunk world, I'd be there.
The same thing that's happened to for me with every Soulsborne game is I've played is I get past the first boss and you get that relief moment after and go, I don't want to do that again. Like that was too stressful.
Yeah.
So I did the first boss of Lies of P on stream.
Mm-hmm.
Then haven't touched the game since.
Yeah, you played that one with Rob, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it looks fun.
It's a good game. It's a good game. Like, it's just not for me.
Yeah, if it didn't have that like insane difficulty spike where I was going to die 40, 50 times, the world, the aesthetics, the character, the fact that it's like a darker retelling of Pinocchio is like such a cool hook. I'm like, yeah, I'm there for it. But if I have to die time and time, I don't have time in my life to waste time dying. I don't have time for death, basically. Lies of P Overture coming this summer, so you won't have to wait too long for that one. We've got another peek at the Midnight Walk, which is one that I think jumped out at the Game Awards to us. It was almost like claymation. If you remember it, it's from the people who made the one with the dice, the little dicey guy, Lost in Random. It's the same people who did Lost in Random, I think. Don't quote me on that one. Coming 8th of May, Midnight Walk. It's a claymation game. It's also coming to VR. It looks incredibly creepy.
I remember the one now.
Yeah, it's a little jarhead guy. It was like he's both cute and creepy, very Tim Burton style. And it looks like a very short little Nightmares-esque adventure in a beautifully realised claymation world. And I think it just ticks so many boxes for me. I love the Little Nightmare series, and the stop motion clay style of this looks great. Like it's not quite Wallace and Gromit levels of claymation, but it's looks special, looks something different. And the 3D element, as opposed to like the 2D side scroll platformer, adds a different vertical that we've not seen yet. But it's just got such a good vibe to it, creepy as shit.
If it falls in the category of game of that, I wish I had the time to play it, but I almost certainly do not.
This is definitely going to be in one of those art style nominations come the end of the year. So keep an eye out for Midnight Walk coming 8th of May now. 8th of May. Another one we got was in there. I don't know if you've seen it, Richie. Was Darwin's Paradox, which is the Konami octopus game. So it was like in the middle of it randomly. This is probably the most random one in the whole thing. We got a trailer for essentially it's an octopus game by Konami.
It's Metroidvania where you play as an octopus.
Yeah, and it's very not Konami. Like they're coming back with Metal Gear. They haven't really done much in the last decade, and then now they're making this quirky, almost. I mean, it reminds me of Octodad for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But it looks like they've given like a little bit of budget to a studio. If anyone's seen the Finding Dory, it's got the vibes of Frank the Octopus from that.
It's not a Metroidvania, I'm sorry. It's like Inside or something
Little
along Little Nightmares, but you're playing as an octopus.
Yeah, escaping from it's like almost like Abe's Odyssey vibes as well. You're escaping from a factory that's looking to use plant life. There's one point he gets caught in the kitchen, so think like Little Mermaid trying to escape. He's in the sewer with rats, mixture between underwater levels and avoiding.
There's a karate dojo.
It just looks really like fun.
Yeah.
It looks really fun, like really good puzzles, good bit of platforming. And it looks like there's an element of comedy to it with the octopus and the way he's like so cartoony animated. I think that could be like a really like just stealth hit. Like one that people just aren't expecting. It's like, you know what, this game's so fun. So yeah, Darwin's Paradox, check that one out. We also got, I'm going to skip through a few of them, Richie. We got obviously a trailer for Metal Gear Solid Delta. We knew about it last week because it was leaked. 28th of August confirmed. It does include Ape Escape as well. Are you there, day
Which
one
is
for this
weird.
game? It's not includes Ape Escape. It was in the original, if you remember. You could hunt the little monkeys in the trees.
See, I didn't know. I remember.
It's not like a random add-on.
I was watching the trailer the other night. And went, is that Ape Escape? What's? But it doesn't really. The trailer didn't explain anything. It was just there. It was like,
yeah. So
weird.
in the original
then
one,
it goes back into Metal Gear. I was like, that's just weird.
Yeah, there was a mode where I think throughout the game you can shoot like little parrots up in the trees, if I remember. But I think there was a mode where the apes got swapped into the jungle and the forest, so you could actually hunt them, a la Ape Escape. And they've just brought it back as like a quirky little in-game thing, like an Ape Escape hunter version. So we'll see what that looks like, whether it's standalone or not. They did mention it in the blog, but I can't remember where I read it necessarily. Somewhere there, but not relevant for this particular show. We also got Sonic Racing Crossworlds, got a reveal trailer. We knew that was coming from the very, very brief teaser we got at Game Awards.
I'm sorry, but you can't buy this game. It doesn't make sense. Sonic is a creature that can run at the speed of sound, yet seems to decide to sit in a car to go racing. Yeah, just make any sense.
You could just get out and
Why
run.
Go slower?
I think
you would be faster without the car.
I think in the first game there's something like the competition.
He broke his leg.
No, the competition rules restrict him. Like he has to take part in a vehicle. There's like some very loose story.
He should Flintstones it then.
He should just
kick through the floor.
Yeah, he should. But the game looks great. It looks like, again, in the absence of a new Mario Kart anytime soon. Graphically, it looks really crisp and clean.
Absence of a new Mario Kart anytime soon. The Switch 2's coming out with Mario Kart as a launch
Not confirmed.
game.
Not confirmed.
It pretty much is.
We've just literally seen a small clip in a hardware reveal trailer.
Yeah.
When's Sonic coming out? Did I say a date? They want to get out before Mario Kart.
Yeah. No, it's got to be out before Mario Kart.
Sonic.
It's
Sonic.
Closed testing is the 21st of Feb. I don't think we have an actual.
So you'd imagine by spring, right? May at the latest.
Watch this, it'll be like August and Switch 2 will launch in July.
It might be a Switch launch game. But yeah, the game looks great. It looks like they're using the Sonic rings from the movie, where the rings are like a portal to another dimension. So it looks like we're going to get some like Ratchet and Clank world hopping, as the title Crossworld suggests. They're probably going to bring in some other Sega IP as well by the looks of it, so it's not just Sonic. So yeah, maybe look out for some Crazy Taxi or Yakuza shit in there at some point, which would be weird. But yeah, what else do we want to touch on? Tides of Annihilation was another game.
This is another one that jumped out at me, actually.
What did I mark this one down as on our list? Tides of Annihilation. Stellar Blade meets King Arthur. I think is what I got, because it's an Arthurian legend in London retelling. Yeah,
I didn't get the Arthurian stuff.
I think
just
it's
looks like a cool, like almost JRPG action game, and then it's like, hang on a sec, that's London. It's like near the end of the trailer, it's like I'm even more in now. I think it looks cool.
I think the characters are going to be called like Spectral Arthurian Knights or something from the blog.
Yeah.
It reads, it's
the Order meets Stellar Blade.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It says, players will take on the role of Gwendolyn, who wields the power of a mysterious grey fog that can manifest two spectral knights at her side. Each knight has a distinct combat role, whether it's charging into battle or defending against attacks, or unleashing devastating combos. Players will need to strategically choose which knights to summon based on their preferred gameplay style and the challenges they face. The interplay between Gwendolyn and the knights creates a dynamic, fast-paced and deeply engaging combat experience. It's a system that our team, veterans from the top game studios, fell in love with during internal testing. So yeah, it's in modern London with familiar landmarks that are going to be scarred by a supernatural invasion, offering a haunting glimpse at what once was. Medieval fantasy realms of Arthurian influence reign supreme, creating a medieval world of ancient magic and mythical creatures. So Yeah, I don't know. It just gives off like decent vibe. Again, I just hope it's closer to Stellar Blade and further away from Bloodborne. Because Stellar Blade's combat was often referred to as Souls-like, but it really wasn't. It was more action heavy than it was like you're gonna die 50 times.
My first impression is I wasn't getting Soulsborne vibes. I know it's got some boss fights and stuff.
Yeah,
but it did look a bit more hack and slashy.
Yeah, same. That's the vibes I got as well.
Yeah.
Which again, if you lean into Stellar Blade, you're going to get a lot of them thirsty boys out there who are going to pick it up and play it for other reasons.
But while Stellar Blade, I think Stellar Blade's marketing did a disservice. Because it leaned too much into the fan service, because that's all the initial trailers were. This, obviously, it's got attractive women in it, but they haven't leaned into the fan service. And I think it makes the game look less cheap in the kind of way. Stellar Blade, seemingly, well, I've not played it, but I am interested in playing it. It seems like it was an awesome game.
I enjoyed
I was put off by the marketing, because I just looked at it and went, oh, if that's how you're marketing it, you probably don't have a good game then.
Yeah. Just released on PC this past week, I think. It said it's due to come out at some point later this year, but they're expecting its sales to be bigger.
Yeah, I'm interested in this. It's definitely on my wish list.
Yeah, it sold over 1 million copies. Shift Up's now recorded its highest. Yeah, that was it. Shift Up's financial record said it's recorded its highest annual revenue ever with a 30% year-on-year increase. So, despite narrative single-player games with defining ending, it's been continuously updated with as a live service game. It's steadily built up a strong global fandom for the Stellar Blade IP. I think we're definitely going to get a sequel for it. And as you said, getting some sexy ladies in there.
You know what?
Might sell some
in a wee way, I'm thinking this could do similar things to Bayonetta.
Yeah, I can see that linear as well. Last few games then, before we just give you a quick rundown of the ones that we unfortunately won't have time to talk about. Hell Is Us got another trailer, and it got a reveal date of the 4th of September. So again, another date on another big game. This one in particular, I think we remember from the Game Awards. We weren't too sure about it. It was a guy who'd left home and went back to his war-torn country. But he has some kind of like abilities now. He's got a little pet drone, and it looks to me, I think I penned it down in our notes, as if Kojima made a World War II game that was inspired by Resident Evil. Is the best way I could explain that.
That's a sentence right there.
But it looks like that. Like this, the main protagonist is going back and he's discovering all of these kind of war-torn ruins, but there's some kind of threat that's here. But then all of a sudden the game pivots into these like creatures that have no... They look like the Spot from the Spider-Man movies, the animated ones. You know, the Spot who can consume things in his mouth, like Slenderman people with like shadow realms within their faces. Combat looks like it's some kind of laser sword, which is again where I think the Kojima influence comes from. But there's a big, strong element of like tech as well as fantasy. But yeah, the game looks gorgeous. It looks like it's got a lot of puzzle mechanics. It looks like a very big open world. But yeah, Kojima, Resident Evil in a World War II fantasy setting.
It's one I think I need to see more about the game, because I don't quite get what it is at this point.
It's got some good vibes though, which again I think every game we've talked about, it's got that. It's hitting on some kind of front. Right, what else we got? Just to quickly run through the final ones then. We'll probably talk about them closer to release and everything, but we got a new Shinobi game, Art of Vengeance, was announced as well. This is from the same people who made Streets of Rage 4, which was really good. So I fully trust them to make a 2D Shinobi game, bring that to the 2025. That's coming 29th of August, so you'll see that later this year.
2D side-scroller Metroidvania, looks good.
Yep, WWE The Island, which is a social hub, has been added to the game. Five Nights at Freddy's, The Secret of Mimic, is coming 13th of June, which is another spin-off of the Five Nights at Freddy's. You don't need to know more about that. Digimon Time Stranger, apologies, I did mention it at the start of the show, but no time for Digimon. Dreams of Another, which was an odd standout one, which it's made by Pixel Junk, who are the guys who did the... is it Risk of Rain? Are they the Pixel Junk people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they haven't really done anything since Risk of Rain 2. But it's a game where you live in a world filled with voxels, and it looks like you're some kid going on a dream in your pajamas. But then you have guns and weapons, and when they explode, they turn the voxels into real things. So if you shoot at a car, it turns into a blurry car, into a car and a tree. You basically paint your environment with weapons of destruction. Weird.
Before we move on, I do want to touch on Digimon. It kind of reminded me of Persona.
Okay, that could be a good thing.
And I mean, I did like the first season of Digimon when I was a kid. So it's like a Digimon game in the style of Persona. That could be an interesting, like...
Digital monsters. It is technically called Digimon Story Time Strange, I think.
Yeah, that could be something quite interesting there, actually. I'm not sure I'll go for it because I don't really care about the Digimon IP anymore.
Yeah.
But if you are like someone who's interested in the Persona games, interested in Metaphor and looking for more stuff of a similar style, I think this is something that could be worth looking at.
Yeah. Digital monsters. We also got Warriors Abyss, which is a Dynasty Warrior roguelite, which stealth dropped there and then during the state of play, which is like, I forwarded it to my brother. I was like, hey, if you just enjoyed Origins, there's a roguelike type game. It's basically, if you took Dynasty Warriors, pulled the camera out, and added some roguelike elements to it, you've got your game right there. I wonder what the turnaround on that was. We got, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Richie.
Abiotic.
Just abiotic. It's just... Why is that a space? Abiotic. What does that mean? Do you know what abiotic means? You're a man of science.
Do you have any particular... I don't know.
You are biotic?
Drunk.
Coming to PS...
Abiotic is not biotic.
I would say non-biotic, but words, eh? Splitgate 2 is getting an alpha on the 27th of February. Blueprints, we'll talk about in a moment. And we knew about Onimusha 2 and Way of the Sword because they got announced at the Xbox Developer Direct. So overall, really good PlayStation State of Play. Again, didn't see as much from first-party studios as I was hoping, but we got a ton of games. They all got dated, and for the most part, they're coming out pretty much before September. So, nice slew of things.
Nothing bad in there apart from WWE and Five Nights at Freddy's. Fight me in the comments. I dare you.
The threat is there. The threat is there. Next up, we did get a blog post which basically broke down the new games coming to PlayStation Plus for February this time round. They did sandwich it in the presentation, but you might have missed it. They mentioned you get Jedi Survivor, Saga Frontier, Lost Records, Bloom and Rage is probably the biggest one, Richie. You're getting episodes 1 and 2 coming April the 15th. So you're getting the first 2 episodes of however many Lost Records ends up being. Of course, Lost Records is the spin-off, not spin-off, I should say. It's the spiritual successor to Life is Strange.
Which is still a game that's coming out, but it's changed developers. So it's the guys who made the first Life is Strange.
So is this Dontnod or is this...
This is Dontnod. It's Deck 9 that's still doing Life is Strange.
Who've now made more games than the original developers, ironically.
Yes.
So Deck 9, Life is Strange came out, didn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and this one delayed its date back to February. So
I'm waiting for a price drop in Life is Strange.
Yeah. Well, Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, you get to, I guess, trial episodes 1 and 2 in February and April. At that cadence, I'm guessing
I'll be waiting for all the games.
Yeah, I'm guessing
episodes come out.
Episodes 3 and 4 are going to come out in like June and August, maybe, if at that cadence.
I love these style of games, but for me, and I actually do like them split into episodes.
Yeah.
I just want all the episodes in one go. I made the mistake with Life is Strange 2, where I was trying to buy them as they came out. Mm-hmm. But when sometimes you're waiting for a month or more between episodes, you lose your interest.
Yeah.
What I like to do with these games, ideally, is you get, like, say, a 5-episode season.
Mm-hmm.
Each episode maybe about 3 hours long. So every night, during the week, you play 1 episode.
Yeah.
So across the week, you play the full game. And that's how I like to play these games.
That's good. But it's a decent get to kickstart thing. It gives you like a...
It's
a big demo. Also, you get Topspin 2K25, Saga Frontier, Somerville, Tin Hearts, Morehow, Patapon 3, PSP Classic Remaster. Not Remaster, just PSP Classic Port, sorry. And Dropship United Peace Force, the PS2 Classic, coming later this month as part of your PS Plus catalogue. Then after the whole event, Richie, we got a blog post drop that says Astro Bot, Game of the Year winning Astro Bot, is not done yet. They put out the blog post with a new advertisement featuring Finn Wolfhard, I think, is it Wolfhard or Funghang or something? I can't remember what his name. The guy from Ghostbusters and Stranger Things. Showcasing the PlayStation Portal. The PlayStation Portal's actually got an advert with Astro Bot characters strewn throughout. And this first post basically tells us that we're going to get 5 new levels. So any of those with eagle eyes will have noted they showcased a level at the PlayStation tournament back in London in January. No one picked up on it. No one in the news industry picked up on it at all. So you're going to get that level plus 4 new additional ones. You're going to get them spread out every week, similar to the last batch. February 13th is TikTok Shock. Guess what that includes? February 20th is Thrust or Bust. February 27th is Cockadoodle Doom. February 6th is Hard to Bear. March 13th is Armored Hardcore, which has got to be a Armored Core. Got to be like some kind of. Obviously, they are also going to come with new bots to discover, new levels. There's a slight difficulty crank up they've alluded to as well. But the biggest thing, Richie, is they're all free of charge. So between now and March 13th.
I hope Cockadoodle Doom is actually a Doom level.
That's it. Yeah, I guess if you read
with
into
chickens,
TikTok.
Hard to Bear stretch could be Banjo. But I'm feeling that I'm leaning to Microsoft.
I'm trying to think, what comes with bears in it. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, Armored Hardcore, Armored Core.
Thrust or Bust. I'm not getting anything for that.
Stellar Blade for the bust. Thrust or Bust, Stellar Blade.
It's bust, not as in like when you're playing poker or a card game, you bust. It's like it's boobs.
It's boobs.
Yeah.
TikTok.
It's the boobs level.
Anything to do with time. It's interesting because then you have to think of like what IP wasn't in the main game. And then how many people have they gone out to now since the success of Astro Bot and went? We've got Ratchet
and Clank. Yeah, I was just thinking like a Rift in Time with the time travel, Time Splitters. I'm thinking just TikTok
possibly,
and being a clock in time, and
we'll find out. But an interesting game to play. But more importantly, all free. So sweet. You can replay them. More online rankings for me to beat. Now I just need to get the game off my other friend, who I've also lent it to get it back for these extra new levels. It's like, oh, come on, give me more. Right.
At some point, this is going to come to PlayStation Plus.
It will. And quickly rounding out the PlayStation news before we get into some Xbox news to see out the show. I mentioned it earlier, but the Order 1886, Richie, was it did have a sequel. It was put out upon its 10-year anniversary this Thursday. The Ready at Dawn co-founder, Andrea Pacino, has been doing some interviews, doing some rounds just on podcasts and stuff like that. And the Victorian steampunk shooter that came in back out on PlayStation 4, I was going to say in 1886, was lauded as a technical marvel, and still to this day is one of the best-looking games on Sony's hardware. Me and you did a full playthrough about
gorgeous
3 months ago, maybe now, back end of last year, and it just looks better than a lot of games that come out today, which for a 10-year-old game is astounding. Like at Ready at Dawn did some phenomenal stuff with that PS4 to get it
definitely traded quantity for quality in terms of the game.
It did, and that's what's really interesting. In the interview, Andrea Pacino actually goes into saying, like, we wanted another year, but Sony with the contracts were basically like, this is the date this game has to launch on, and they basically gave them no wiggle room, so they had to cut loads of stuff out. They said there was more character development, more story, much more gameplay, and he said they basically had to chop the game up. He said there was parts in the middle of the story where they wanted to do some more stuff regarding like the world and the enemies, and said they had to trim it all down.
It really sucks when you get an arbitrary deadline is held as if it's sacrosanct. So then you have to compromise your vision. And then because you don't put out the product you want to put out, unfortunately, you get slandered for not having the quantity of content for the price range, which then leads to your studio making some ship VR stuff for Meta and then eventually getting shut down.
Yeah, absolutely.
All because of a stupid deadline.
It's daft, but like reading it says from the interview, it says they were doing really good work with Shuhei Yoshida, most notably during development. It said he got a promotion which added to the development strain. He'd been working really closely and became less hands-on. He said Shu went to Japan, he was promoted, he became in charge of the whole thing. A lot of people followed him. There was a whole shuffle upwards within the company. Leadership is a delicate balance. One person changes, things change, so everything changed for us at that event. Things we'd agreed on had gone, things that were still up the chain of command but you couldn't bypass it or get an answer. It's like the military, you can't just go hey shoot, so the amount of friction, everything started to change at that point. But there he goes on to say like just the problem was just so much was cut. Subtle narrative changes were lost because of the way it was chopped up. Things that were supposed to be interactive became a movie because it was criticised for a lot of cutscenes. We were just desperate and we needed to ship it. We had at least one more year. We needed at least one more year. We didn't get it, so it was cut, which is just like, oh.
Why do I feel like the whatever contractual terms where they're not allowed to talk about things that were going on behind the scenes have just elapsed?
Yeah, like a statute of limitations.
So now they are legally free to just... It's like a statute of limitations. Like, now because it's been long enough that they're actually free to just openly
the company's
talk about
gone,
it.
right? The Meta liquidated them, so they don't exist anymore as well.
Well, that could actually be it as well. As like if actually legally, like, right, this company is no longer exists, is stricken off the records. There's nothing stopping them. Any contracts are gone.
Yeah, he says.
I mean, Sony could potentially sue the per individual, but
they're not going to at this point.
It's not worth it.
Says, Ready at Dawn had pitched a sequel to Sony and held discussions over its setting. It would have contained multiplayer gameplay as well, because that was kind of the time. It would have launched about 3 years later, so about 2018, 2019, you would have seen the sequel. Instead, Sony chose not to move forward with sequel plans as the first game failed to find a warm reception. And I quote, he says, I actually don't think it was the sales, I think it was critical reception. Sony is a very proud group, rightfully so. The critical reception of the first game, even if it had been in the 70s, we would have had a sequel, I'm convinced. Just a few more points to tick it over and it would have been okay. But because it landed in the 60s, it was imminent death. In a way, it's better that they passed, because if we thought we'd have screwed up before, we'd have signed our lives away wanting to make a sequel. The budget would have been smaller. We would have completely been at the mercy of decisions that were out of our control with no leverage. We're not in a decision to negotiate a reasonable contract. They could have done whatever with our team. So, yeah. And then they were bought by Meta to make VR games and they were shut down. So, that's just sucks.
It's a shame because
it's just
an underappreciated game.
It's just a poor indictment of the way the industry works, really, isn't it? You've got a team that are capable of making some of the most beautiful stuff, telling great stories, and because of decisions made by non-creators,
this is the worst thing. It's like Sony screwed. It feels like Sony screwed this up rather than Ready at Dawn, and Ready at Dawn paid the consequences of it, and Sony just walked away and went, "Your game wasn't good enough, so we're not going to greenlight a sequel." And they're like, "Well, but the game wasn't good enough because you didn't give us the time that you originally agreed to, and we had to cut so much content because you forced us to. So the game's crap. It's still an amazing game. It's not as good because of your decision making that you force upon us."
Yeah. And then isn't it ironic how many of like Sony's first party studios have probably got more time? Like when Naughty Dog needed more time for The Last of Us Part 2, that's all like a year delay. But unfortunately, Ready at Dawn being second party, in like he says in there, the contract negotiations, we didn't have any leverage for that kind of...
This is where, because as he mentioned, Sony are a proud company. A Sony first party title will be probably given all the time it needs, and it's the second party titles that'll be sent out to die.
Yeah. You get a one hit, basically. You don't do well, that's it.
Well, it's like we're forcing you out. We're going to hold you to an arbitrary deadline that you're not going to meet, even though you've been saying you need more time, because we're holding something back from our first party, and we want to make sure they have the time, and we need some money in the gate, so you're going to die so we can live.
Yeah,
it sucks.
It's like sacrifice. Just sacrifice the team.
Yeah, that's literally what it feels like reading this.
Yeah. If it does well, we'll take all the plaudits, but if it does bad, sorry, you're on your own. But one day, Richie, I hold out hope. One day in 20 odd years, we'll be sat there and they'll finally go, we're going to do a remaster of the first game, and then we're going to see it. Like, you don't even need a remaster; just put it out as it is on a PS5 version, and people would look at it and go, "This looks gorgeous."
I'd do a remaster, get it going full, because it only runs at 30 frames per second. It's not a problem.
True, yeah.
But get it to 60, give it a 4K upres.
Give it a Bend. They're doing nothing. You just scrap their game. The irony of Bend making a sequel to The Order would be hilarious. But yeah. And then the final story, I guess, for the week, Richie, is we'll touch on some Xbox news because it's been a very PlayStation-heavy podcast. The Avowed reviews are in. We're aiming to play it later on this week, actually, because it launches, I think, this coming Tuesday. But early review round puts it at a really good. Reading from some of the reviews, Avowed has landed. It's Xbox's first-party release of the year. BGC 24/7 gives it a 5 out of 5, and I quote, "That's what Avowed is. Strong storytelling, great combat, lovely visuals, and utterly charming. It's not going to light everyone's hair on fire, but that's fine, because I know for a certain subset of people, refined people of taste, if you ask me, Avowed will enjoy cult classic status. Doesn't necessarily push the envelope, but nor does it need to. It's exactly what it needs to be. 5 out of 5. Reading from IGN, they give it a 7 out of 10, saying, "With awesome world building and stellar character writing, Avowed reminds me why we fell in love with the Obsidian RPGs in the first place. However, the bigger picture is that it plays it quite safe with a by-the-by numbers fantasy adventure that's more familiar than evolutionary, and there are barely any enemies variety to keep swords and sorcery battles interesting for that long." Reading from Pure Xbox, they gave it an 8 out of 10, saying Pillars of Eternity fans looking for a sort of in-depth that comes with the series will need to adjust expectations accordingly, as this is a breezy, spunky, fight-fueled affair that's more about creating cool loadouts and finding treasures than is falling in love with an NPC or spending 10 hours in your inventory at a time. Come for the fast-paced fights, colourful environments, and excellent exploration, and you'll have a great time. Overall, this is sitting on Metacritic currently at a 80. So those reviews actually seem more on the lower end.
And critically, an open critic of 82, because in our Discord, we had a bit of a game going on, and I said 81, which is the average of 80 and 82, if you're doing your maths. Mm-hmm. But I also said with a low spread, which is what it's got, so I win.
You win. You win. Round up. Round up. And I guess as we head in the week, Richie, after these early reviews, where are you sitting on Avowed now? You've got a big gaming metaphor out the way. I've got Sly 2 out the way. So we're actually both poised to potentially jump into Avowed fresh this later this week.
My next game slated is still Indiana Jones. It would have... An 80 is, unfortunately, while a very, very solid game, and I'm looking forward to playing it on stream, and the stream may shift it.
Get its hooks in there.
The reviews are not strong enough for me to put this above Indiana Jones and what I want to play next.
That's fair.
My opinion may change on stream.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana Jones is award-winning now.
Yeah.
It's got that reverence behind
I think it's the thing. The 80 is a difficult one where it's objectively a very good game. Mm-hmm. If it hits that sweet spot, or sometimes you're in the mood for a game.
Yeah.
If it hits you in the right mood, absolutely won't be go. I could be sat down on the stream playing, going, "This is it. This is the next game I'm playing. I'm going to continue off camera and go for it."
Yeah.
But I could also see myself going, "You know what? I really enjoyed that. Let's install Indiana Jones."
Yeah.
It's hard to say at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a go purely because I've got that time that's suddenly freed up in my calendar now before I move on to something big. I'm dabbling in a few things, but like the Jurassic Park Genesis game isn't going to keep my attention for too long. I can probably complete it in like 2 hours if I needed to. But it's out. It's a big AAA game. It's Xbox's big first one of the year. It's on Game Pass, so I'm going to check it out. But yeah, we're probably going to be here on Thursday. You're on the sticks this week, so I'm going to watch you and see if it gets its hooks in me. I'm going to pre-install it and check it out. But yeah, decent reviews. Yeah. It's a good start for Microsoft this year with the Developer Direct and then Avowed. And then the previews for South of Midnight are looking good as well, which we won't get into here. But it's a good start to the year, leading up towards, of course, Doom.
With Avowed, it's not so much the number. It's that if some of the reviewers are going, it doesn't do anything. It's almost kind of by the numbers.
Yeah,
it plays it safe. It's by the numbers, which is not a bad thing. But it's like I'm feeling very much at the point when in gaming where it's like I feel there's a lot of genres need to elevate themselves.
Yeah,
it's Starfield was a perfect example where I enjoyed Starfield. But it did just feel like Elder Scrolls in space, where I was feeling like I wanted a bit more. I think as we went through that kind of Breath of the Wild, God of War, like reinvention of a few genres, I want to see other genres do the same. So I wanted Avowed to be like kind of, the Elder Scrolls third-person fantasy genre RPG. Take that to the next level. And it doesn't feel, from what I'm reading, it doesn't feel like it's done it. It feels like a strong exponent of that genre rather than a genre-defining game.
Yeah, I can see that. So, yeah, looks good though. Good start. We'll have to see come later this week on the live stream, which hopefully you out there will join us for. We'll get into. And then the final story of the week, Richie, we're going to wrap up with Xbox reported that the successor to the Series X and S has been fully approved by Microsoft and the wheels are finally turning. Reading from roughly a year ago, I should say, Xbox President Sarah Bond suggests that Microsoft was building an all-powerful next-gen console, and since then, Phil Spencer said multiple times they're still in the hardware game. Windows Central reporter Jez Corden dropped a little nugget of information on the recent Xbox podcast saying, yes, it's now moved past its early stages and has been fully approved and costed by Microsoft, which we always expected, right? Because it's the way the cadence slows. They are going to want to go ahead of PlayStation. They're probably going to squeeze in there with, I think, the Switch coming this year. It makes sense that then we'll get an Xbox, then we'll get a PS6 maybe in another four years' time. the cadence seems to be set for that. And I guess, it takes a couple of years. There's probably R&D been done for pretty much since the launch of the X and S, to be fair.
Yeah, it's kind of, I feel this is the point where they've kind of probably locked in the specs, or at least the first key draft of the specification. They've took to the board Microsoft, and Microsoft look over and went, going, yeah, go do it. Go start the development project in earnest.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're at.
And we know about the handheld as well. That's in the works. So we're going to see some hardware reveals. Remember the leaks that showed us the full internal pack that showed us like the cylindrical Series X, amongst other things, and then just nothing happened.
We were expecting that to be out before Christmas, because that would make sense. So I'm guessing that's a this year thing now.
If they even go ahead with it, it might have been scrapped since then. Because was it the if I recall rightly, wasn't it an actual Xbox employee had leaked? It was part of the court document stuff, wasn't it, with Activision Blizzard King, and they'd posted a link in the court documents on a public website by Microsoft themselves. So it was like actually leaked by their own staff. Because we did a full episode breaking it down, didn't we? And it was like, we're going to get a new Series X, a new Series S, different memory, cylindrical design. I like the look of it from what I remember from the pre-rendered pictures, but because we were talking about like our 2-year plans coming up and thinking like this might be our next purchase.
I feel that could be this year as a mid-generation refresh of the consoles, because if I'm right, Microsoft giving the green light now is the start of the project, so there's probably a lot of development to go in to actually the actual designs. It's from where I'm thinking is they've got a spec sheet that kind of outlines what they want to do. Yeah,
what the
time. They haven't started trying to do it yet. That's where I think they're at. So Microsoft now written the check, go start the development. So that could be 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Switch 2 next year, Switch 2 this year, Xbox handheld next year, Xbox main hardware to complement the handheld the year after.
I could see this year the refreshes of the Xbox Series S, X, and the handheld all launching simultaneously.
All right, like a new suite of hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends how they want to approach the handheld, whether it's like a peripheral like the Portal or they want to make it its own thing.
Kind of a soft relaunch of the generation.
Yeah, something along them lines. But yeah, it's official, so interesting stuff. And of course, we'll cover it right here every single week on the Gamer Guild podcast. But that does bring an end to our super jam-packed gaming episode. And we like to end every week, Richie, with a look back at this day in video game history. We're recording, as I said, on Valentine's Day. So looking back in yesteryear, Richie, any games jump out for you on this day of love?
Not much, really. Crusader Kings 2. 13 years ago. I never actually played it, but I'm aware of it.
Surprising, a little...
Ninja Gaiden 3, Twisted Metal on PS3. That's probably more PS2 era. Sniper Elite 4, that's one we played in Stadia, isn't it?
Yeah, Sniper Elite 4.
8 years ago.
8 years, damn. Well, nothing says...
Well, actually, Tomb Raider 4, 5, and 6 remastered, out now.
Today.
At the time we're recording, yeah.
Yeah. Nothing says I love you better than Age of Empires, The Age of Kings on Nintendo DS.
Yeah, I saw it and went, it's DS.
It's just the DS version, which I bet plays terribly. Let's look ahead a day. Street Fighter 2 came out 34 years on the arcades.
The PS Vita, 13 years ago.
Oh, there we go. What a day.
Along with Hatoful Boyfriend on PC.
That was...
the sim where there's a pigeon.
The Vita, we should point out, that was the wider release. I think it came out in Japan in the November prior to Christmas, and the rest of the world got it a little bit later. So yeah, 13 years ago. 13 years, PlayStation Vita. Damn, Vita means life.
Anthem on PC?
Oh, Star Wars Empire at War on PC.
Yeah.
If you've never played it, Richie, it's Star Wars meets Age of Empires. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Do it. But
do it again.
I mean, yeah, we're probably overdue with Star Wars RTS. But we're also overdue ending this show. So that brings us to an end of this week's Gamer Guild podcast. As always, thank you very much for your support. If you haven't done so already, like, subscribe, ring that bell so you kept in the loop with all of our great content. Join us later on this week for our Avowed live stream, possibly Thursday. maybe Friday, we'll have a look. And all of the content we do here on the channel, like the Last of Us playthroughs, the Clickercast podcast, which is out now, and you're all checking it out. And as I mentioned in the show, if you have listened to the very end, why not drop a comment and just say thank you, or what you're playing this weekend, what games are you in love with the most. But that's been it for this week's episode. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been the GamerGuild podcast, folks. And remember, play whatever makes you the happiest. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.